had, for my 38 years on planet Earth, I've had so much squeezed in. I sometimes ask myself, well, I mean, I've heard like, God gives the toughest battles to the strongest of his soldiers. And I'm like, I did not sign up for it. At least that's what I know. Uh, what's going on? Like, what are you preparing me for? Like World War IV? Combi 3? This is a bit too much.
So welcome to
But
this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with my super special guest. We connected on Resilience Community. Sphere brought a group together. You were there, started the WhatsApp group, and then you
mhm,
were traveling all around and doing business. And so I tracked you down. So
I'm
Suresh,
glad you did.
yes, Suresh Pathirana. That was so funny because I'm like, how do I introduce you? And you're like, well, and I'm like, you're like a serial entrepreneur. And you're like, okay, that'll
Mm,
work. So you're
yeah.
going to talk to us about some of the businesses because I think you're launching the eighth one that you've launched in whatever
hmm
capacity.
hmm
Um,
hmm
I struggle. I mean, I've got one, and then building another community with another coach. Actually, I have two. Two. It would be a lie to say one. I have two.
hmm
One's in the AI space,
hmm
consulting, and then executive coaching and leadership development because those things go together so well. Everybody goes,
Right.
"Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That makes sense to partner those two things."
hmm
So you have a quote to kick us off, and I'd love to hear the history of the quote and hear some more about you, sir. So welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle, for having me and inviting me. Uh, my a quote that I live by is simply to inspire the uninspired. And it's interesting, the origin of it. Uh, People may laugh at it. It's from like right out of high school when you're watching these teen movies and whatnot. I watched this movie by this comedy entity, National Lampoon. They created this movie called Van Wilder, featuring Ryan Reynolds. And
Yes.
yes, so there's this piece about in that movie about Ryan Reynolds is a student who's been in college for 7 years, not graduated. He is afraid to face life, and but there he is for 7 years in college, changing people's lives, and he doesn't realize it in a very fun way. Of course, the movie is I think it's an R-rated movie, but
I'm
it
sure
is.
it is.
And interesting enough, when, of course, this is any movie where, it has a really beautiful ending, there's this article that's written from the College Tribune about his character. And his character goes on to becoming a person who inspires the uninspired.
Hmm.
And then I saw these similarities between him and I, because this is a shocking revelation. I don't think many who have not known me personally knows this about me. I've been a kid who's been growing up in different countries thanks to, my family's line of work. I've been hopping around. So as a result, I spent most of my schooling in Southeast Asia, and then there were times whenever I went back home to Sri Lanka, where I'm originally from,
Mhm.
I used to do like the summer schooling in different schools. And there were sometimes instances where I don't even know why my family did that to me. They would put me into a school for a couple of days. And funny enough, one day, yeah, no, because they were like, oh, just go out of the house somewhere. But in Sri
Something to
Lanka,
do, like going to camp or something. It's like here's
exactly.
Suresh.
Eh,
You're gonna go for a couple days.
Pretty much, pretty much. So, long story short, that whole journey took me to over six different countries in the Asian region.
Wow.
And and then I've been in a total of 40 plus different houses. Like I've moved 40 plus times. Now
Wow.
I've stopped keeping track of it. And then I remember when I was graduating high school, I just sat down and I wrote like even the schools I was in for just a couple of days, and there were like about 23 different schools. I said to my mom, I sat down, I literally sat down with her in the kitchen and I said, "Hey, mom, do you want me to put all these schools on my resume? Would that make me like, I mean, I'm sure the employer is going to be like, what are you? Did you even, like, how'd you study?" And then I was like, you know what? I'll just stick to where I graduated from and then I'll figure my way out. And when I saw that the number of lives I've interacted with, it resonated well with the character Ryan Reynolds was playing. And I was like, yeah, man, that's me. There were
Mm-hmm.
times like I went to school, someone came in and asked me like, "Oh, hey man, you're like the new kid. Like, what's your name?" I'd be like, you know, the moody teenage kid. I'd go like be like, don't bother. I wouldn't be around for you to remember it, you know? And as a teenager, I was a bit angry about it, but
Yeah.
funny enough, when I graduated and if I was settling and I was building my own life, interesting enough, I used to meet these random strangers. They were like, I know you from somewhere. And there were people who remembered me, my name, and they were like, weren't you in this school? And I was like, yeah, for like 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Wow, you remember me. It's like, yeah, no, hard to forget. You were that Sri Lankan kid with like a different accent, and then you weren't like nobody knew where you're from and where you were going, and what do you do now? And I was like, oh, I'm figuring it out, you know, because that's how I kind of got there. And fast forward, that I was growing up in the time of Yahoo. Yay. I mean,
Oh,
Yahoo's going to
geez.
get some
Okay.
recognition,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there was no, we didn't get to say we're going to Yahoo it or Google it. For us, it was like internet search and it
Yeah.
was
Yahoo
Yahoo.
never became a verb. It never became a
Yeah.
verb.
And there we were. And I remember my dad was having plans of me joining his businesses and stuff, but I was this stubborn kid. I just said, no, I want to make it in my own, like on my own.
Yeah.
And then the first thing I did was like I literally went online and searched for the most high paid job. And at that time, it was becoming an IT manager because I wanted to make my way up to, living in the city and whatnot.
Yeah.
I was living in this movie sort of world. And then
That's
I was like,
funny.
okay, IT it is. And there I am in college and I'm like doing IT. And then funny enough, but I was also very interested in other subjects and whatnot. It came to a point I was taking so many different courses, like I had to sit down with the dean in college at the time. This is at Broward. The dean actually asked me, he's like, Suresh, what do you want to become in life? Like, and I was like, huh? I want to do IT. And he's like, no, I get it. But have you looked at all the different courses you're taking? You're doing business law, you're doing economics, you're doing comparative economics. Or do you want to major in economics? And I was like, I don't know. I love the subject. The professor is fun. I'm doing it. So fast forward, I ended up even having a major in liberal arts, got my IT stuff together, walked out, and then I remember then things kind of went a bit chaotic in my personal life, in my family. And then it was just me. It was just me. I had to figure things. And I remember
Yeah.
I went back to Singapore and I was like, I need to figure this out. I literally landed there. I'm like, I had this complication where my family was like, okay, you go figure whatever you want. I could say for temporarily kind of being disowned by my own family
Yeah.
for a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about it
Well,
in a funny way right now.
they didn't know what to do with you. You didn't know what to do with
Yeah,
you. You were still figuring
pretty
it
much.
out. Yeah.
Pretty much, pretty much. So in the midst of this chaos, I mean, right now I'm laughing about it, but at that time it was kind of dark actually. I
Yeah.
rocked up in Singapore and I realized my account didn't even have $1 in it. And then I was like, oh shit, what do I
Yeah.
do?
You're like, oh
Right?
my God. Okay.
Yeah. So I called up a friend. There I am going to their apartment and I'm like, I need a place to crash. So I'm like, I need to figure this out. So I'm there and I'm like trying to apply for a job, trying to get something done. And then, uh, funny enough, I had this vision about this particular building that I said to myself, one day if I come back to Singapore and I'm looking for a job, this is where I want to work." All of a sudden, a friend of mine gives me a call and says, "Hey, man, I got you an interview, but you got to go right now." And I kid you not, I was in the worst outfit at that time. I was like in khakis and flip-flops and like the worst crushed shirt. And I'm like, dude, like right now? And he's like, yeah, go for it. And I go into this tech company in this location, and the location turned out to be this building that I've been dreaming about my whole life,
Yeah.
mostly spending my life in Singapore. And then I get this job there, right? And next thing you know, again, there weren't smartphones for me to look up a company's name. So I'm like looking around the lobby, who they are and whatnot. And and then it's like one of the leading like aeronautical companies. Like they make computer systems for airlines and whatnot. This got acquired by Lockheed. Actually, the company is called Airring, and that's where I started off like this internship.
So that is
And
not the attire that I would picture. I would picture you would be going to an Apple interview, Google interview, maybe Facebook that would be okay with
mm,
flip-flops and how you would dress. That's interesting.
I don't think at that time though they would have still taken that on an outfit, but it happened. And I'm like there, and this lady asks me like, "Do you know like what industry we're in?" And since I saw these are like ornaments of planes and Apaches there, I was like, "Something to do with aviation?" And she smiled at me. She said, "Yeah, somewhere around that." And then fast forward, somehow I managed to pull it off, which is an interesting story because I got this confidence that comes, I think, probably from my dad's genes because he was in that kind of public speaker and whatnot.
Yeah,
So I got the job. I'm there, and then I say to myself, "Okay, I don't want to do tech anymore
yeah.
because there's this social person in me that's not getting out there."
Hmm.
Then I have other stuff that happens spirals down in my family that's so complicated, which just takes me around the world. I ended up signing a contract for the Ministry of Defense for Kuwait and being a consultant for the US government. And I ended up pushing myself to the Gulf for the first time. And
Wow.
when I heard Gulf, I thought it was Nevada, but it happened to be the actual Gulf. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that
Where
desert.
it was happening, where it was happening.
And yeah, so I get shipped out. I land in Kuwait, and then I'm working as a simulations programmer. I create different war scenarios. My job is to predict and create these different war simulations. And I had the pleasure of working with the U.S. Marines, the Army,
Wow.
and it was an interesting time. But then again, that spirals into more tension. The job was
Hmm.
also scary, and then
Yes.
yeah, like I was like what 40 kilometers away from the Iraq border, and then and yes, I've seen some
Well,
through
and
some
that's,
things.
Suresh, when you think about it, right? Because we did the live this morning, hot seat coaching, and what you talk about is you were, there was no escape from
Hmm.
everything that was around you because it was around you. And then the job that you're doing keeps you in it.
Hmm. Yeah, because I just I was actually not in a position to even leave.
Yeah.
This is the kind of job that you're kind of you're binded to it.
Yeah.
And and finally, when the opportunity came, I was like, you know what, this is not what I want.
Hmm.
Because I'm still searching for myself, and I'm going through these various things, personal drama and
Hmm.
trauma, and then my work life was having personal trauma, and then again, I find myself back in Singapore, and then things went so south in my family to the
Mm.
point where we my family lost everything, and then I had to go save the day, and I didn't even know about it growing away from the family for a long
Yeah.
time, and I had to go through this discovery process of learning what in the world went down. And to be honest, like those who know me personally and knows the super details of things keeps
Yeah.
on saying, "Hey man, you deserve to get a Netflix series for this one." And I was like, I don't think I could get someone to act it. I'll have to go do it. But
Yeah.
it was scary enough. I remember finally somewhere around 2012
Hmm.
when I went back, it was so south. Um, I I had to deal with a lot, and then I had to take up a job that I wasn't not fond of it at all. I started off as a teacher. As much as teaching is an amazing career, it's the
Hmm.
worst pay in the planet. Oh, at
Yeah.
least in Sri Lanka.
Oh, yeah.
And and then again, I found myself in a space where people not knowing my personal background, they all looked up to me because they found me to be interesting, unique, different, a
Hmm.
person who's traveled. And I was sharing these stories, and I kept on inspiring people there. And fast forward, things got complicated in that school too. I kept moving, and then came the biggest, scariest, most drop in my life,
Mm,
where my family went through this severe bankruptcy
mm,
and all of the weight fell on my shoulders. And there was a time I was actually homeless. I
mm,
was homeless and I was in the middle of the city in Colombo, not knowing what am I going to do? How am I going to get my
mm,
family together? How
mhm,
am I going to figure this out? And I was moving around a lot. I was trying to figure this out. And I was talking to, I think I was becoming a lot more comfortable asking for help. I was
mhm,
asking people, but not not many was willing to support. So I was
mhm,
in a very dark place. And I remember it came to a point where finally I was staying in one of my relatives' homes. I was in this room where with just a stereo, and I
mm,
have lost my gear. I have no means of communicating with people. And I had a few of my close friends who was with me from school to college who was helping me out every now and then.
mhm,
And finally, when things in my family started settling, I was able to kind of get myself together and go for a
mhm,
job.
mhm,
And I remember going for a job interview, and then I gave my resume, and this guy goes like, "Oh, interesting. You have a really interesting profile, your
mhm,
personality, all of that. But what happened?" And I was like, "I really don't have the luxury to explain the whole story to you. Your company is great. I'm here for the money, and I need the job. And I promise you, I will outperform anything and everyone that stands in my way here. I'm
mhm,
not here to compete with everybody. I'm here to compete with myself, but I'll
mhm,
promise you, I'll give you a show." And he was like, "How long will you stick around?" I said, "A year." I know
mm.
that was such a weird line to say, but I just said a
Yeah.
year because I said to myself, I've lost so many years in my life because this is the time in my life where I was like benchmarking myself with what I see,
Mhm,
my friends, and then I said, I have to catch up. And then this person that I met, he was like, "Why a year?" I was like, "The first year I'll impress you. Then you get the next year to impress me if you want me to stick around." Right.
mm,
And then that's where I had my first corporate career in the revenue cycle management space.
mhm.
It's a US healthcare,
Yeah.
but we were based in our operations center was based in Colombo, and I was doing a night shift for the longest time. And then work life wasn't really happy.
Mm,
Um, Still, I wasn't really clear about where I want to go, what I wanted to do, because I
mhm.
wasn't feeling content. And
Well, you just landed somewhere, Suresh. You're
yeah,
like, I just need a port in the storm right now. This isn't my
yeah,
passion. I just need a port
yeah.
in the storm.
And there was no direction. It's just
Mhm.
like, I'm just sailing. Wherever the ship goes, I'm going kind of wide.
Yeah.
And then it came to a point where I was really, really unhappy. And then this very close friend of mine reminded me of who I was.
Mm,
She gave me a call one day and she said, "Serge, I never remember you being this person who is afraid to take on chances,
mm,
you know? And you're the kind of person who just jump off a cliff and figure your way out, you know?" And he really gave me that courage. And I walked away. I simply, I had obligations and whatnot, but I wasn't feeling complete. I walked away. And then next thing I landed 2 months later, I used to get red notices on my loans and whatnot.
mhm.
I used to be one nice person who would always answer the phone, whether I have the money or not. I'll still answer the phone, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Listen, I'm in this mess. I'm gonna fix this. Bear with me. I'll call you when
Mhm.
the money's ready." And I
Yeah.
kept looking, and all of my friends were like, "Dude, you're crazy. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm figuring it out." And I did this, and then I moved to this larger chamber of the knowledge and innovation in Colombo.
Mhm.
And this is where I had a break in terms of people getting to know what my interests were. And I've
Mhm.
been always doing these events and stuff on the side, which is my event company.
Yeah.
It started when I was 18. And then I remember the opportunity to showcase my skills came when one of the chairman of this entity came out of nowhere and then gave me this challenge where they wanted to do this big tech conference and there was only 8 days to do it. And I said, I asked, I asked how many I asked for the budget and I said, what do you want? And then they didn't necessarily have an outline. I said, fine, I'll do it my way. I'll bring my people in and then I'll make it happen. Just, yeah, give me the space. And I pulled it off. And everybody was like, whoa. And it was one hell of a show. It was one hell of a show. I was so proud of myself. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. It goes close to what I believe in, inspiring the uninspired. I bring people together, I create experiences,
Yeah.
and all of it. And then kept on doing it. And then again, I was like, okay, I need to be in the bigger space of events. This is right before COVID, and there was the Dubai Expo happening.
Yeah.
And I was about to land a job in that. But then COVID happened and I couldn't go.
Mm-mm.
And
No,
right when
nobody
that,
could go. Nobody could go, Suresh.
yeah, and right at that moment, when some of the folks at that time, I built a decent network, heard that I was moving about, all of a sudden I got this opportunity at Hatch, which is their largest co-working space in Colombo.
Hmm.
And that's where everything started. That was just what, 2019? And I was part of this biggest startup ecosystem in Colombo, in Sri Lanka. The energy in that place, Michelle, if you ever go down to Colombo, Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
that's a space
Yeah.
you gotta visit. It's just amazing. They're co-founders, and we were in the founding team. We built this amazing place. And then
Now, what's it called?
we
Hatch?
hatch. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought,
Yeah.
which is a perfect name for that space,
Yeah.
incubator. Yeah.
And so we did these amazing things, and sad enough, things took a turmoil in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And then again, life became a bit more challenging.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, again, seriously, I literally used to say to the co-founder, this is my last career. I'm not going anywhere. This is where I'm going to retire. Right?
Well, you threw the challenge out to the universe is what you did. Okay. And the universe goes, no,
Right.
Suresh, you're not done. You're not done. We're gonna kick you out of the nest, dude. You've got other
Yeah.
things you
Yeah, this is where I think where faith came in, my faith grew stronger, and I realized God has bigger plans than
Yes.
what I thought. And fast forward, I came to a very uncomfortable situation in Sri Lanka. It's so sad because it's a beautiful country because I actually
Hmm.
fell in love with my own country when I stayed and
Mm.
was working with Hatch. And sadly I had to leave. And again, I just left Hatch not knowing where I was going.
Hmm.
Fact, I just had few contacts, and then I had the first thing I had to do the first day I left Hatch, which was October 23rd, 2020, was it 2023,
Okay.
and I was in
So we
Singapore.
were solidly emerging out of COVID and the pandemic. So we had, yeah,
Yeah.
2020 and 2021 were funky.
Oh
22
yeah.
and yeah,
But funny enough, at Hatch it was amazing year. 2021, we won the best co-working space in the world award from the Global
that's
Startup
awesome.
Awards.
That's awesome.
And we never expected it, but it happened. And so 2023, I had to leave, and then I was in Singapore, and then I had an opportunity to do a couple of events in Dubai. I came to Dubai, and then I said, okay, so this is their new New York in the Middle East, apparently.
Yeah.
So let me try this out. Uh, I've been in and out of Dubai, but I never like literally settled. And then I wasn't
Lived.
a
Yeah.
big fan, but I saw a big change happening in the Middle East with diversity, everybody,
Yeah.
is welcoming the outside world. So I took a stab at it. Fast forward, next thing I know, I'm having conversations with another investor, and he goes, Suresh, how'd you like to come and build a company for me? So I do this project. And then that project leads to a series of doors. I'm
Hmm.
meeting with a whole bunch of people. And there I am, time to time, in the middle of the night, whenever I go for a walk or something, I look up the sky and I'm like, hey, God, um, what's up with all these things happening?
Hmm.
Where are you trying to send me? You know? But my desire to do events, building communities and whatnot never faded. And then, but
Right.
But with all of these things happening, it gave me the confidence to really take a chance on anything and everyone or anyone that comes my way to do
Hmm.
something new, which led us to the resilience community, the
Hmm.
companies I built. And at the speed I was going, I was like, I mean, even to date, I have people who's like, do you need an assistant by any chance? Because it looks like you're in the middle of chaos. And I'm like, at the moment, I don't, because honestly, God's blessed me with a great team, great friends,
Hmm.
and and a very supportive family. And it's kind of somehow falling into place, despite the fact
Hmm.
it looks like it's a lot. I mean, it is a lot, but it's fun. I'm enjoying what I'm doing,
Yeah.
And then all of these partners come together, and then next thing you know, we're having these conversations, and it looks like everybody has this interest to building startup ecosystems. And
Hmm.
funny enough, I wasn't talking about it. One of their partners who happened to see my LinkedIn profile was like, "Hey, you ran a company called Hatch. Why don't you rebuild it?" And I'm like, sure, you know. Then comes the birth of Bidaya, and then my other business partner from our architectural firm, MDM Architects, he goes like,
Hmm.
I'd like you to take this to Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is live and operational right now.
I
And
love it.
then in the back burner, me and a couple of friends who was in their RCM, their healthcare side of things, were
Hmm.
like, so if you're into tech, you know this thing, you know a lot of people, why don't we do build a business? So,
Hmm.
a couple of us just get together, we cook up a business plan. Next thing we have our business live. Now I mean, we're operational in the States, we're operational in Colombo. And these days, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in the middle of some negotiations with potential partners who can come on
Yeah.
board. And I have calls at like the most random hours, like 9 p.m. Like some people call me at like 11:30 p.m. UAE time, and they go like, "Is this a bad time?" I'm like, "No, no, not at all.
It's
Let's talk."
perfect. It's perfect. I don't have anything else doing going right now.
Yeah, so it's been that, and now all these companies are up and about, and I said to myself, "Wait, if I go back." The very first company that I created was called Revolution 7. And Revolution was because I was a teenager at that time,
Hmm.
but I still love the word revolution. I said, it'll be something that'll change the world. And 7 was supposed to represent 7 different industries that I want to be part
Oh,
of.
interesting.
And I didn't know what they were until recently when I was reflecting back. I was like, wait a minute. There are
Hmm.
now all these industries together and they're all sitting with me. So here I am, I'm looking at like, Centavia, which is our RCM company, Vindaloo, which is our DACA incubator, Bidaya, which
Hmm.
is our UAE incubator. Then our partnerships with MDM, bringing architecture, infrastructure, building community and spaces for people.
Hmm.
And then those layer 14, which is my events company, which is like everything to me.
It's your
And
heart. It's your baby.
yeah, and there's Wise Covery, which is the teaching partner. And then I look back and I realize how all of the different experiences that I've been having from the rock bottom I was to where
Yeah.
I am today, everything I've put together has been like trying to perfect a model that I have been part of, but in my own way.
Hmm.
And I'm doing that by identifying in like the passionate people who are
Hmm.
not just in it because doing a business, of course, for profit means you have to obviously, make it work, make money out of it.
Hmm.
But at the same time, people who are passionate about it, they're not doing it just for the money, you
Hmm.
know. They're doing it because it's their purpose.
Hmm.
So I thank God every day that I have found such people as partners
Yeah.
in these
Yeah.
businesses. And I'm I'm so proud and grateful to say that whenever people ask me like how are these companies doing, and I'm like, oh, it's taken care of by my business partner
Yeah. Yeah.
who is passionate about it at times more than I am.
Yeah.
And
We lift, it's
that,
so funny, Suresh, we lift each other up on stuff.
mhm.
And what you're talking about is when you go back, and it's all about this, we set the intention for ourselves. And it matters so much and people don't realize. So when you look back at, 18 and you set that expectation of this is what it is, and it's seven different industries. And then people wonder why you had all the wide range.
Michelle, I've lost your audio.
Oh, sorry, I hit the mic. So,
Oh,
what I'm saying is, thank you for saying that, by the way.
yeah,
And unlike the person that was on stage and their mic had disconnected, and they're like, "No, I'm good."
I
But
had
what
to.
happened
Okay.
is you had set the expectation that it was going to be seven different industries when you were a kid in college, or at least before you went into college. And so your subconscious went, we gotta go wide because
Yeah,
you literally got exposure and stuff that didn't make sense if someone was penciling it out at the time.
yeah. And I would say, despite all of these things, I was blessed to grow up with, I call it the crazy rich Asians sometimes. Because in Singapore, I did have the privilege of meeting some amazing people.
Hmm.
And there was a friend of mine who used to, do all these crazy things. I mean, I think her family is like a billionaire family. And one day, when I used to say, "Oh no, that's not for me," she had this interesting statement. She said, "Hey, Suresh, imagination, dreaming, it's all free. There's no limit to what you can imagine, and no one's going to charge you for it.
Mm,
And if you can see it here, you can have it in your hand."
yes.
And then my usual question was like, "Wait, how?" And so, "Oh, don't bother about the how.
Hmm.
That will figure its way out."
Yeah.
And I was like, fast forward when I was reading about like law of attraction, positive thinking, and I
All
was
the
like,
stuff.
oh, and I was like, "Oh my God, that kid probably read this book long time ago." And then I realized, wait, it's more like a rich dad, poor dad kind of narrative where they were instilled with it as kids to think with no limitations.
Yes.
And then and then I grew that habit, and as a result, some people nowadays used to come and say, whenever they talk about an event for me, I think I put my thinking hat on. They go like, "Okay, calm down, bring it down a notch. I know what you're
You're
thinking."
like, the sky's the limit. We can do
Yeah,
it all.
and I even have some people coming and saying, "Oh, sir, it's your high maintenance. You're going to be like thinking about bringing in all the luxury brands." So it's like, why not? No,
Yeah.
but so I've no limit there. And to date, I live a life as if I always try to live like as if it's my last day on earth,
Hmm.
because honestly, we don't know.
Hmm.
And I want to give it my best.
Hmm.
And I it could be a simple smile that I could share with a stranger, or even the most like rude person I could come across, I would try to be like, "Let's try to figure this out." And I have friends who
Hmm.
come and tell me, "Dude, the world's problems are not your problem." And I'm like, "No, it's not my problem, but if there's something I can do to make an impact in one person's life,
Hmm.
that matters to me." And so I have this habit. You'd probably find it crazy, where if I see someone who's having like a frown face or like thinking really hard, you can see it
Hmm.
from their face, like they're like
Oh
really
yeah.
upset about something. I have this, I think it's a horrible habit, but I would randomly smile at them and wave from a distance. Right. And they would actually smile and wave back, not knowing who I
Yes.
am. I don't even
Yes.
know them actually. And then for a brief moment, I'm distracting them from thinking whatever that's
Hmm.
bothering them. And then, funny enough, recently one of my friends said, when I was telling him about this whole thing that I do, he was like, "Hey, dude, what if that person is not actually having a problem and that's how they look?" And I was like, "Well, still, it's a distraction."
Well, and what happens is with smiles and stuff, literally you flood their system with dopamine. So it's not just a distraction, it literally lights them up.
And it's just, it all comes back to my quote,
Yes.
I just, the community, the events, the different industries we're working in, and even within those industries, the work culture, knowledge sharing,
Hmm.
working together, collaborating. Everything is about bringing everybody together in whatever
Hmm.
way we can,
Yeah.
and appreciating and accepting people for who they are and supporting each other in whatever way. Because my ultimate vision or my goal with this quote that I live by is to leave this world better than we found it.
Hmm.
And, you know, because every day we do hear things that are crazy, scary, and like,
Hmm.
you hear about these wars that are going on in this world. And
Yeah.
then I ask this question, I'm like, these people are fighting for a land that's not even theirs,
Hmm.
it's the Almighty's creation. And it's not like at the end of the day we get to take it with us.
Hmm.
We come into this world with nothing and we
Hmm.
leave this world just the way we came.
Hmm.
Um, Old and probably wrinkled, but
Yeah.
but
Some, not all of us, but yeah.
and
Some
yeah,
people take a different path in that wrinkled part.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
among those people, but yeah, they do.
We will, and we never know. But the interesting part is when we do go through this process about how do we leave something behind for the next generation, and
Yeah.
it can't be hate and obsession over material
Mm-mm.
things.
Mm-mm.
Sure, enjoy what you can, but there's enough to share.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to do, because whenever we build a business, something I always say to my business partners is, remember, we're not doing this just for the money.
Mhm.
And something that we have in common across all the companies that we have our, employee equity options. So
Mhm.
our employees have their opportunity to, the company's theirs. And
Yeah.
I'm, and even for the event company, one thing I've told my co-founder and business partner is that one day you and I will have to choose a successor. And
Mhm.
it can be somebody who has been in the company, or it could be this random soul that we're going to come across who is so
Mhm.
crazy about this business. And I want to leave it to that person. And then I said, and it's up to them to choose whether they're going to take the company to whole new heights or sink it. But
Yeah.
somebody has to be given a chance. And I have my friends, some of them who are not in business with me, coming and telling me, dude, you're crazy to do all of this. And I was like, does it matter? You got to take a chance, right? Because if you
Mhm.
take a look at all of the great personalities and people who have done amazing things in this world, they all started because someone gave them a chance,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I totally
You're,
agree. I I could literally sit and listen to your stories and what's going on and bobblehead and agree with you probably for hours on end. I find you very, because you're so purposeful and coming from a soul purpose that keeps you grounded through all the stuff. And I
Mhm.
appreciate the time as you come from us. You're in Dubai, I take it, in a coffee shop.
Abu
Um,
Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi. Sorry about that. Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
It's just, I love the conversation, Suresh. I love the message and the spirit of hope that
Mhm.
hopefully people take away from this conversation. There's not one way to
Yeah,
do it. Um,
absolutely.
and as long as you can just keep checking in with yourself,
Hmm.
to help guide and,
Hmm.
source, spirit, God, however you call it.
Yeah,
Because we have a huge opportunity to make a really significant difference in the communities with which we,
absolutely.
and we don't want to leave anything on the table. We don't want to leave
Yeah.
anything on the table. What are one or two things, as much as I appreciate the time and realize that we don't want a mini War
Hmm.
and Peace novel from this, although some people might appreciate it.
Yeah.
What are one or two things that you want people to walk away with?
I would say to remember a few things would be like, one is to say nothing is impossible if
Mm,
you can if you can set your mind to it. Uh, there, whatever it could be, faith, it could be the universe, whatever you believe in. If you really really want it, you can make it happen, right? And the other important part is to be a good listener. We have a lot of talkers. We have a lot of us talking, but not many of us are actively listening to actually understand people.
Mhm.
So I would say, come with the mindset of understanding that nothing is truly impossible because we're in the process of discovering new things every day.
Mhm.
And so you come with that mindset and then you come with the purpose of supporting people in whatever way you can.
Mhm.
You can be supporting a person just by listening to them. You can be supporting a person just by sharing a smile. You could be you don't have to be investing in someone because investment is not just financial investment,
Mhm.
investing time to get them connected with people. So wherever you're from, it doesn't matter anymore. Now
Mhm.
we've come to a world where it's truly borderless on the
Oh,
internet, and
hands down.
the the impact you can do with that kind of spirit, uh, it's just amazing.
Mhm.
So to my takeaway for people is to remember that nothing is impossible, and you can find the strength to do whatever it is that you set your mind to. It could be with faith, could be with your loved ones could inspire you,
Mhm.
or a community can inspire you, a country, a city, whatever it is. But to always look at a purpose.
Mhm.
Material things can be important to some, for some it may not be. But what matters is you do something that fulfills you. And when you
Mhm.
go home or when you're chilling out somewhere with your favorite drink, you say to yourself, I'm doing something great for this world. I'm doing
Mhm.
something great for my local community. So that's what we should do
Yeah.
as profit making businesses, to even if it's a charity, whatever it is, do something to make an impact because
Mhm.
there's what, 8 billion of us now, I think. Uh,
That's what Sphere said this morning. I stopped counting, but yeah.
yeah, I think it's 8 billion, but and people just now have the means to get closer to each other in an instant. So don't say I don't have time or whatever. You can always make time
Mhm.
because I have this problem where every time I see a message on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, wherever, I somehow manage to respond to it. I don't have a single unread email unless it's their uh, marketing email, which says they're
Yeah.
selling
Yeah.
something. Other than that, anything that someone has intentionally written to me, I would reply.
Mhm.
Whether I'm interested, I'm not interested, I'll do it. So because I believe when I have the time now, when I have the energy now, I should do something.
Mhm.
And then I should instill that value and get people to have this growth mindset, wanting to constantly learn and constantly improve other people's lives
Mhm.
with whether it be a service, whether it be or a couple of inspirational words, whatever it takes, give something back. You know,
Mhm.
that's what
It's
I want
it.
people to
Thank
really look
you.
at.
The thing I would add is, because I agree with all that. I think part of it too is remember it's not about us. It's there's a broader thing, a broader mission, a broader value, and we all have it plays out differently depending on who we are. And there's no thing too small to step
Hmm.
into and make someone's life a little different, a little better. Because some people
Yeah,
will minimize it and go, "Oh, that was nothing." It wasn't nothing. So be
absolutely.
intentional around those moments. Be open to those moments. Don't shut them down, because you just don't know the impact that you can have. To your point on someone else's life, and so
Yeah.
take the chance, step into it when you see the opportunity. If you've got thoughts in your head about, "Wow, that person looks nice," or "Wow, that's a great color," don't keep them
Hmm.
here. Share them. And it's
Yeah,
those little things that make a difference. It's like, wow, you look great in that. Instead, and I had to tell myself that because before it'd be in my head, I would never say it out loud. And I say it
yeah,
out loud.
it's very important. It's very
Yeah,
important
yeah.
because
So
a compliment to a person can take a long way.
yeah,
And
yeah, totally
we
agree.
we we may not know how our stories can inspire others, but I can guarantee there's always someone dreaming for the life you have. You may not feel content with what you got now, or people feel that, but they don't realize that there's someone else out there who's wishing for it. And
Hmm.
like when I was in Dhaka, I had one such instance where one kid who actually came up to me and said, Suresh, you live the life I dream of.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I said, well, I hope you get that and more. And in my head, though, I filtered one part out where I said, I hope it's without the creative chaos that I have, though,
Well,
in
but
a
you
good
have,
way.
but there's a journey we all go through. Suresh,
Yeah,
you wouldn't be the human you are today with the considerations that you have now had you not
sure,
lived through all the stuff that you lived through. Because you
sure.
hit rock bottom a few times, because you were homeless, you have an appreciation for life that I
Yeah,
don't know that you would have at the level that you have.
sure. No, yeah. I remember quite recently, I was just a few years back, I was celebrating 10 years
Hmm.
from being there to where
Hmm.
I was. And I met this startup founder who was in the brink of bankruptcy, and he was facing so much of different problems, and he was really upset, and he was very emotional about it. And I just sat down and I spent 10 minutes telling my story in third person, right? I,
Mm,
I was saying it, and his response was like, "Oh, Suresh, that's just something like a movie, it's not
yeah.
real." And I was like, that person I was telling you about, the person who is in the street to becoming a person who's running
Hmm.
this kind of company? He's like, yeah. And I was like, it's real. And he was like, really? Who is that guy? And I was like, you're looking at him. And I said, if my story of wanting something and fighting for it and believing in the impossible is
Hmm.
not going to inspire you to think that you're going to overcome whatever problem that you're dealing with right now, but yeah, I don't know what else I can do to inspire you. I said, believe in the impossible. Anything can happen. It's
Hmm.
life changes in a split second. All it takes is a second. And like right before I actually flew into the UAE, I met with a horrible accident,
Mm.
and it was a split second, and I thank God for it. I mean, honestly, if you saw the wreckage, you would you. It's hard for you to believe that somebody walked out alive from it. But I've had for my 38 years on planet Earth, I've had so much squeezed in. I sometimes ask myself, well, I mean, I've heard like, God gives the toughest battles to the strongest of his soldiers. And I'm like, I did not sign up for it. At least that's what I know. Uh, what's going on? Like, what are you preparing me for? Like World War IV, Combi 3. This is a bit too much. But it is what it is. And I've no regrets though. I've no regrets. I'll keep pushing.
Yeah.
And I want people who know me and who's probably who tunes into this podcast to even think that no matter what you go through, there's always light. and
Hmm.
and I'd like to uh wrap it up by saying this phrase. I don't think I call it a phrase, it's not a quote. I used to always write it. I don't know why I write it. Since I was in junior high, I used to write it in every notebook. I used to write, light always wins.
Mm.
So I'd like to leave the audience with that. So remember, no matter how dark it gets, the sun will come up, and you get her like you get another chance. And you can try again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, Michelle.
yeah, I so appreciate this time. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and Suresh. And until next time, please like, share, subscribe. Have a frickin' awesome day.
Thanks, Michelle. Take care.